Hello listeners. Welcome back to Storytime FM. Today we will be looking at some r/AskReddit comments. What's a job that's romanticized but in reality sucks? Let's jump right in. Veterinary medicine fantasy. I get to work with puppies and kittens. Reality. A 3-month-old kitten died in my care. I've seen so much gore and blood and neglect. I've sent animals home with invasive cancers because family can't afford treatment. I've been the only comfort shelter animals knew before they left this world. It is a specific and exhausting kind of pain, and it isn't really talked about enough. People who say they couldn't do it because of the euthanasia have no idea. Edit. Thank you to those of you who were kind and respectful. I will not be interacting anymore as recounting some of this is a little emotionally exhausting. But I'm going to plug this link for anyone, vet med or not. https://www.nomv.org/ Have a good night everyone and be kind to all living things. Let's see what other comments there are. Architect. You think you'll be designing big fancy iconic buildings. Warehouses, Walmarts, strip malls, and shitbox apartments all need architects, and that's probably what you'll end up doing. Apparently lifeguard, because nobody can find them anymore. Computer game development, especially testing. That is the ass end of an industry that is mostly ass. Everyone used to think it was awesome that I worked in live sports TV. 70% of the people I worked with were miserable pricks with overinflated egos, and then there were the athletes. Let's see what some other people wrote. So all of the jobs then. Most, not all, jobs in the environmental sector. Pay is usually quite low. You tend to work in very ugly places, landfills, contaminated sites. You are expected to get jobs done in half the time you really need with as few resources as possible. And if you are consulting for other companies, nobody really wants to be working with you to save the environment. They generally are just trying to barely meet some regulations. Edit. There are definitely exceptions, as some commenters have pointed out. Some people find a niche that works out very well for them. Just sharing my personal experience and that of other environmental professionals I have known. Edit 2. I don't mean to discourage anyone who really wants to pursue an environmental career. But I also really wish that I would have learned some of the negatives, in my comment and the many replies, before I began mine. As a result, I only lasted a few years as an environmental consultant and basically started over in a completely new field. Chef, cook, shit pay. Toxic work environment. Shitty hot working conditions. Megalomaniac, incompetent management and owners. Long shitty hours. Working every weekend and every holiday. The only people you will see regularly are your coworkers. And most people descend into alcoholism or drug abuse to cope. Most people get into it because they're passionate about it, and most bosses will take advantage of this. I spent 10 years in this field. I walked away with nothing other than the knowledge I gained. Then had to re-enter to workforce at the bottom at the age of 30. Been out 5 years now, and started making more money and working less hours within a year. I wish I'd left sooner. Edit. I work in IT now. I got the job mostly through personality and luck. No, I've not seen the Netflix show, and have no intention to. Journalist. Expectation. I'm gonna be the next Hunter S. Thompson and write compelling feature pieces with a unique voice and get paid to travel the world. Reality. Talking to my editor about how my contact from the cat fashion show won't call me back or do an interview unless we pay them $80 or adopt 2 cats. Let's take a look at some other comments. I strongly suspect being a spy doesn't involve half as many high-tech gadgets and spontaneous sexual intercourse as have been led to believe. Ballerina. Doctor. Fantasy. I make lots of money, everyone respects me. Reality. I watch people die every day, work exhausting 12-hour shifts, have crippling depression and multiple addictions. Lawyer. Number of historic, life-changing, precedent-setting cases participated in. 0 number of angry, self-entitled, abusive clients wanting to screw each other over. 842 number of pages of paperwork that sucked up free time and social life. 84,836. Let's look at some more comments. Working on a film. If you're crew, it sucks. Long hours for what seem like very slow progress on the picture. Lots of standing around waiting, etc. You arrive well before everyone else and leave after everyone else. If this is an indie production, you also may have to beg, chase down for your pay at the end of each week. Oh, and when the film wraps, you're now unemployed. Musician. Show up at club at 5 p.m. or earlier. Unload. Setup. Mic check. Wait hours for show to start. Get shitty bar food or local fast food. Play to half-empty room. Tear down. Load into vehicles. Hopefully get paid enough to cover expenses. Leave club 2 to 3 a.m. Covered in sweat and physically exhausted. Either drive to another location or shitty hotel. Lather, rinse and repeat. It's a grind for 99% of the musicians out there. My God, I miss it though. From what I've understood, being a cowboy is really awful. Lawyers. Everyone thinks that it's like Suits. Reality. Reading papers for hours and running behind clients in order to get them to come to the appointment source, my dad. Let's see what other comments there are. Probably anything in the entertainment industry. It's bogged down by a lot of workers' rights violations. Insane hours during crunch time. No work-life balance, and you don't even get paid much because your employers and society at large think it's a privilege to even be working in the industry. Reading the comments, all jobs really sucks. Scientist. The dream is you come in every day searching for truth and answers to life and the universe's fundamental problems. The truth is you are stuck in a no-win situation of having to publish like crazy, write grants that are expected to support your work and the whole university, while also handling a teaching load, fending off toxic colleagues, doing service, and getting a destructive administration off your back. Everywhere you turn is criticism and blockages. Your papers and grants are rejected. Your students shit on you in your teaching evaluations. You go into every faculty meeting already gritting your teeth because your colleagues on the other side of whatever faction are going to try to shut you down about everything. You can always go into industry and make quite a chunk of change, but people give up a lot of creative aspects of their work. There is nothing wrong with science being another job where you are part of the larger mission of your company, including making a profit. It's just not what people think being a scientist is like. I have 2 jobs that fit the bill. Video game tester. The pay is terrible. You sit in a dark room with no windows all day performing monotonous tests with a group of anti-social introverts. I ran out of inventive ways to submit bug reports saying, the player cannot approach closely enough to the rock at coordinates XYZ. See attached screenshot. I remember working as a group for hours to attempt to manually test an unlockable achievement, only to have the development team push out a new code build right before we finished, so we had to start all over again. Archaeologist. Again, the pay is terrible. Most of the projects are tied to expanding the fossil fuel industry. Hooray, climate change. Doing, Phase 1, work involves checking to see if anything of cultural value is present in a given area. I compare it to playing Battleship. You dig a hole, it's empty, miss. You dig a hole, you find something, hit. Dig around the hit, looking for other hits. You mostly dig many empty holes. I had to rebury my most interesting find, a Native American hearth, because it wasn't in the budget to excavate it. Due to how the laws work, that site was later bulldozed, and now there's a gas station there. Let's take a look at some other comments. Game tester. I worked as a game tester for EA for almost 3 years. Here's what it's like. Imagine a game type you don't like. Maybe soccer games. Maybe an RTS. Whatever. You now play that game, 8 hours a day. But you don't play it. You test it. So let's imagine an RTS. You are told to test the resource acquisition systems. All you do is click around and make sure your guys can mine gold and harvest lumber. You click around the map and mine in forest. There is no combat, they've turned that off for your testing. There is no story, because you just flick from level to test the resource system. You test using one guy. You testing using 100 guys. You make sure no other units can gather resources. You try blocking your own guys. You try killing your own guys. 8 hours a day. Every day. For weeks. You enter dozens of bugs. They put out a patch that fixes the bugs. You have to retest every level and every bug to make sure they're all fixed. That's game testing. Most of these are something I think most wouldn't romanticize honestly. Ob-Gyn sonographer. You get to scan little unborn babies all day. Then you have an excited parent eagerly watching my face and looking at the screen asking all sorts of cute questions while I calmly tell them I can't relay any results to them as I stoically measure a fatal abnormality, or record a motionless heart, etc. Things they don't teach you in ultrasound school. Keep a pleasant expression that does not reveal anything negative about the exam but that also does not create a false sense of positivity. And do not, by any means, cry. Game development. I went to school for it but did not pursue it after and went into something else with transferable skills. My roommate in college is a successful developer and has been for years. He gets fired every time the game comes out and the studio dissolves, which constantly happens. The level of skill required to do his work is about as hard as it gets in terms of programming, yet he gets paid less than a web app developer. Devs are a dime a dozen now since literally every kid goes to school for CS, so if he doesn't like it he can leave because some fresh grad that's willing to work 100 hours a week would be happy to take his place. They need unions. The worst part? He hates gaming now. That's Suix. Here are some more comments I found. I would say working on a ranch. You see on TikTok people working with horses on ranches and everyone is dreaming of that job. But in reality the job is really hard. Museum jobs fantasy is that you're working at a really cool place, with cool people, with decent pay. Reality is you work at a really cool place, with lots of older assholes who get paid decent money while the younger generation gets paid like crap and has zero career advancement options until the older generation dies. Add in internal staff and donor politics, and you have a place ripe with resentment. Archaeologist, specifically field archaeology. 99% of the time you find absolutely nothing. It's often physically demanding, sometimes grueling. The pay is shit. There are no benefits, you have to constantly travel. There's very little stability. I could go on. Source. Have worked in CRM, cultural resource management, archaeology for several years now. Anti-work moderator. Here are some more comments I found. Actor, actress. Most don't make it big and many have very short career spans, then fade into obscurity. Twitch streamer. This is a newer form of career, but one that I have seen a lot of younger people romanticize while watching their favorite streamers making millions playing video games. Fact is that the environment is so saturated it's damn near impossible to really get anywhere unless you're incredibly lucky. Flight attendant. Teacher fantasy. EMA change the world one student at a time reality. Poor paying zoo. Let's look at some more comments. Being a therapist. Too many people I've met get into the field thinking it's how they saw it on TV. Affluent white-collar, own office, warm slow-pace environment. Where you get to sit on a nice comfy couch and be like, let's talk about your feelings. That's only if you get to private practice, which they don't tell you is also like running your own small business. Which good luck is you have no business acumen. The reality is you get out if grad school, get your first job working at a community mental health facility because they are the only ones who will hire you with a limited license and no experience, getting paid less than $40,000 per year if you're lucky, and then get put in a walk-in closet of an office, where they dump 100 client caseload on you the first day, followed by your first client who has 5 different diagnoses and is on 12 different psych meds who says to you, "Fuck you. You're my 7th different person I've had here. Nobody cares about me." Yeah, people go into $100,000 of debt for that. Edit. I'm a therapist myself. I love what I do. But it takes years to get past all the shitty parts of the field to find your place in the field. Needless to say, too many don't survive the baptism by fire I mentioned above and either become burnt out, jaded, or leave the field altogether. Dolphin trainer, marine biologist at a zoo or aquarium. I never did it myself, but I used to work at one, and was friends with them. Yeah. Swimming with dolphins, playing with otters and penguins is fun. But that is like 5% of their day. A lot of cutting up fish, medical exams, and other shit. Now in fairness, I don't think most of them think it sucks, but it's a lot more romanticized than the reality. I feel like YouTuber would be one. Most who try fail. Some who out multiple videos a day with hours of work for each one to never be recognized. And the ones who do now have to maintain relevance and, depending on who they are, have bigger workloads. I'm not saying it wouldn't be worth it, but it's not as simple as press record and publish. Anything in modern-day publishing. How many television shows and movies must I watch where the plucky young upstart graduates from college and gets a job at the magazine or newspaper of their choice and is respected and can make a living? The pay sucks, you're in constant danger of being laid off. When your pub folds, usually, and it's usually a pretty corporate environment where you're tasked with multiple jobs for little hope of advancement. The names high up on the mastheads are usually those of rich people, and it's because they started off rich and could afford to stay in the industry. Let's see what some other people wrote. Superhero. You think it's all about saving people and being loved by the people, when really it's about ensuring corporate profits and good EBITDA margins. Veterinarian. People think it's playing with puppies all day, but you see some really disturbing things and people can be awful. You don't make nearly as much as you should. You're having to do the jobs of like 10 human doctors combined plus knowing how to work on different species. The suicide rate for vets is through the roof. Academic professor. For that matter, science in general. It's less Bill Nye doing cool shit and more editing copy to appease reviewer 2 who simply has a thing against future tense and passive voice for whatever reason. ITT. A lot of jobs mentioned that no one ever thought of as romanticized. Barista? Delivery driver? Social worker? Mechanic? Let's look at some more comments. Plumber. 0 attractive girls that didn't have any cash so far. It's security. It's not fighting hackers. It's a bunch of checklists and hours of meetings that are on the edge of turning into an argument. Film, television industry. Long, thankless hours. The expectation that you should be available 24/7. Otherwise there is a long lineup of replacements waiting for the chance. You might get lucky and work your way to the top. Maybe enjoy some fame and fortune. But even there, it's a dog-eat-dog world. Most people have to sell a bit of their soul to get and stay there. And if you don't make it, you either toil away on crew or end up regaling your coworkers in some other industry with exciting stories about your time in the biz. That is if anyone hires you, because they just can't understand why you left the exciting world of Hollywood to come work at the grocery store. Let's see what other comments there are. Most jobs in the TV or film industry. People think it's glamorous, but it's often thankless, back-breaking work. The wages are usually decent, thanks to strong unions. But it's not like most people are building generational wealth. Plus, hours and working conditions can be a nightmare. But the most stressful part is how inconsistent work can be. Most film shoots are anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months. And TV shows are at risk of being cancelled at any point. Imagine if you had to find a new job every 3 months? It would get tiring pretty quickly. And those periods of downtime between productions aren't a vacation. It's not like you can sit back and relax, you need to hustle for your next gig. Because even though you earn a decent wage, it's not enough to live the rest of the year without more work. Plus, there's a lot of competition for jobs, because there's always a new crop of kids moving to town with stars in their eyes, that don't yet understand how unglamorous the industry can really be. We're out of comments for today. Join us tomorrow for more. In the meantime, leave a comment with your stories and thoughts below. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed and want to see more. Until next time, listeners.